Part 5. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 41. Chapter 41 Refining Silver Needles. Ruan Xianxia pointed to the clothes on her body and said, "You should be able to tell that I am a disciple of the Xuanhuan section. Let's come to Wanghai Forest to practice. Today is the first day for a month. In this month, you can only if you can come to Wanghai Forest to find me. You can go to Xuanhuan sect Qiandu Peak to find me in a month. I am the direct disciple of the Master of Qiandu Peak. Are you the direct disciple of the Master of Thousand Poison Peaks?" Xian looked at her in shock. Although he could tell that she was a disciple of the Xuanhuan sect, he never expected that she was actually the direct disciple of the Master of the Thousand Poison Peaks. "Yes, I have just been a disciple for a month." Yan Xianglou didn't hide anything. When she went out from now on, she would be her master's disciple. This was inevitable and there was no need to hide it. Xian thought that the poisonous weeds he needed were available at Qiandu Peak. His eyes lit up, and he thought that Yan Xianglou had suppressed the poison for his master. It seemed that he would no longer need the detoxifying pill he had refined. "Why did you become your master by the Master of Thousand Poison Peaks?" Xian asked in surprise. "There are 7 peaks in the Xuanhuan section excluding the Xuanhuan peak of the sect leader. There are still 6 peaks. How could she, a girl, choose to become the master of the Poison Peak? You are also an alchemist. You should know that if you can use poison to the extreme, medical skills must be better than poison skills, and alchemy skills are naturally stronger than poison refining skills." Yu Xianglou glanced at him and explained without bothering. Xian gave her a thumbs up. Awesome. He really admired a girl for making such a choice. Even if everyone knew this, for the sake of reputation, they would still choose a master with a clear name. "If I can get a silver needle now, can you suppress the poison for me now?" Zhizhong suddenly asked. Yan Xianglou was stunned for a moment, and then said, "I just gave you the poison today, and it will take 3 days at the earliest before I can give you the injection again, otherwise your body won't be able to bear it." Zhizhong raised his eyes and asked, "What kind of silver needles does Miss Yu need? How much are they?" "It must be pure silver, 81 needles. The lengths are divided into 0.5 inches, 1 inches, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, and the diameters are 0.25, 0.30, 0.35 millimeters. Yan Xianglou took out the silver needles she had used in her previous life. The size was told to Zhizhong. She didn't lie either. Although she had so many silver needles in her previous life, she had never used them all. But to suppress Zhizhong's poison, she really had to use them all. This was also her silver needle technique. "This is the time I have used silver needles the most." Zhizhong thought for a moment, and with the thought, a pure silver crown appeared in his palm, and then a furnace for refining weapons appeared in front of several people. Yan Xianglou looked at Zhizhong in surprise. He was actually a weapon refiner? Is he going to refine silver needles for her on the spot? Oh my god, she is going to have a set of silver needles made by an armorer. Her heart is beating so fast. With such a set of silver needles, her silver needle skills can be used for a long time, right? Seeing Zhizhong throw that exquisite and beautiful crown into the refining furnace without hesitation, I feel a little distressed, but thinking of my silver needle, well, people don't feel sorry for her. Why should she feel distressed? No matter how beautiful the crown is, not as important as her silver needle. A pair of beautiful apricot eyes stared closely at Zhizhong's hands. This was her first time watching a weapon refiner make weapons. It was a rare opportunity. To her surprise, Zhizhong actually used his own firepower to refine weapons. Oh my god, what a luxury! Refining weapons consumes much more spiritual energy than refining elixirs. Zhizhong's hands have clear joints and are as slender as jade. They are beautiful and move flexibly. The crown of her head has turned into a pool of silver water in the refining furnace. The next step is to purify it. The purity of the silver water is getting higher and higher. Xianxia understands that this is the step equivalent to the purification of her elixir. It wasn't until the silver light shone brightly that Jizhong began to condense the silver needles. Starting from the shortest size, Jizhong suspended each silver needle in the furnace. Xianxia's eyes became brighter and brighter. Her silver needle appeared so suddenly. Looking at the silver light emitted by the silver needles, she knew that this was a level of purification that could not be achieved in her previous life. Soon, all 81 silver needles were gathered. Jizhong waved his other hand, and 81 silver needles came from the weapons flew out of the refining furnace and were placed one by one in front of Xianxia's eyes. "Girl, take a look, is the size correct?" Jizhong said. Xianxia looked at each silver needle carefully and nodded, "They are all correct." Hearing this, Jizhong wrapped the silver needle with spiritual power and put away the refining furnace. After a moment, his thoughts moved, and a jade box appeared in front of him. Changfeng immediately stepped forward and opened the jade box, and 81 silver needles fell into the jade box. Jizhong signaled Changfeng to send it to Xianxia. Xianxia carefully took the jade box and looked at the silver needle inside as if it were a rare treasure. The part she pinched actually had the word Ji on it. Apparently this was Jizhong's habit of refining weapons, so she dropped her surname. "It doesn't matter, but it's not okay to put the silver needle in a box like this, even if it's a jade box, it will damage the silver needle." She put the jade box aside, took out the red satin and needle and thread, and began to sew the needle roll. The original owner's needlework was very good. She quickly sewed the needle roll, then placed the silver needles one by one according to the size, then rolled it up, tied it with a belt, put it in the jade box, and closed it. Cover. My whole body was filled with uncontrollable joy. The four of them could see it, and she was extremely satisfied with the set of silver needles. Uge curled his lips. The things his master refined himself would be treasured by anyone. Yu Xianglue was really lucky. "I'm here to practice. I can't wait here for 3 days. Do you think you should go find me then, or should we agree on a place to meet? After taking someone else's silver needle, naturally I have to suppress the poison for them." Jizhong glanced at her and said, "You are not strong enough to go deep into the forest. We will meet here again in 3 days. Although this statement is a bit shocking, it is also true." Xianxianluo nodded, "If nothing else happens, I will show up on time." After all, she was in Wanghai Forest, and she was about to collapse after being chased by a spur-toothed tiger today. She couldn't guarantee whether there would be any accidents in the past 3 days. "It doesn't matter, if you don't come we will go find you." Jizhong knew what she meant. He hopes she lives more than anyone else. After all, she relies on her to suppress the poison in her body. What he didn't say is that he will arrange for someone to protect her secretly in the past 3 days to ensure her safety. This set of silver needles will be considered as the reward for this acupuncture. Xianxianluo raised her hand and motioned to show Jizhong the jade box in her hand. Jiju nodded and didn't say anything. Since she thought a set of silver needles was enough, he wouldn't say anything more. As for the reward for acupuncture next year, she would just talk about it. A year makes a big difference. Xianxianluo put away the jade box and took out a meat bun to eat for dinner. The four of them were stunned when they saw the meat bun she took out and smelled the aroma. "How is this made? Why does it smell so good?" End of this chapter. The fragrance falls ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 42. Chapter 42. Little White Dumpling. Looking at her eating alone, she had no intention of letting them. The 4 grown men were too embarrassed to ask her for it. Xianxianluo didn't think much about it. The regent had never eaten any good food. Who would care about her taste? After finishing the Rujiamo, She took out another fruit and ate it. Her stomach was full and she felt much better. She continued to sit cross-legged in the corner and began to practice. This month, her bed at Kianda Peak was full of decorations, and she practiced all night long, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to advance so quickly. The four of them were speechless as they looked at the girl as if they didn't exist. Uge even looked down on her. Yan Xiangluo ignored them and just wanted to help Jizhong find a place to stay for one night. One night passed, and she could not tell the time in the cave, but she knew it in her heart. As soon as it dawned, she quit her practice and prepared to leave the cave to continue her training. I will come here the day after tomorrow. He left a few words and left. Jizhong said to Chang Feng, you follow her secretly, and don't take action unless your life is involved. Yes, Chang Feng responded and followed him out. Going out and looking down, she saw no one. She was not at the king level and could not fly in the air. How could she go down so quickly? Let go of his spiritual consciousness and realize that the person is above his head. When he looked up, he saw the girl climbing up like a gecko. Why is she climbing up so hard? Chang Feng was extremely confused, but he said nothing and waited quietly for Yan Xiangluo to climb to the top of the cliff. Then he jumped up into the air and followed her secretly. In the cave, Uge said dissatisfied, Master, does she really have that ability? What if she does something bad? Uge, why are you so prejudiced against her? Jizhong discovered last night that Uge seemed to dislike Yan Xiangluo. He didn't believe it. Didn't Uge see that Yan Xiangluo gave him the acupuncture poison? Didn't he see that the poison healed much faster than usual, and that he had suffered too much damage if he didn't have enough cultivation? Uge paused and said, Master, I am being cautious. Jizhong looked at Uge deeply and said nothing, but Uge's heart was lifted because he knew that his master was dissatisfied with him, but he couldn't say that he hated Yu Xiangluo because she must have once held the title of master's fiancée. Xian glanced at Uge. He was a little speechless. The little girl had no interest in their master at all. She looked at him openly and without any emotion of admiration. He was right about this. I don't know why Uge targeted the little girl, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he asked Jizhong, Master, are you still looking for the herbs? Look, Jizhong decided with just one word that they would continue to search for medicinal herbs. The reason why Yan Xiangluo climbed up from the cliff instead of going down was because she had already seen the following while running for her life last night. There were no herbs left. She planned to collect herbs while experiencing them, so she thought of walking down the cliff. Maybe there is something gained. After struggling to climb up the cliff, she took out her guide, memorized the location, and promised to come back in 3 days, which she certainly did. The wayfinder here is really magical, it can remember the route you came from. After memorizing the route, she walked directly in one direction without choosing a direction. Chang Feng frowned in the dark. How much did she know about Wanghai Forest? How dare she go there with her strength? Following her helplessly, it seemed that she really needed to protect her life. He was a little confused as to what the Xuanhuan sect was thinking. Did they ask their disciples to die? Yan Xiangluo was practicing while collecting medicines. There were indeed many rare medicinal herbs here. After a whole morning, she collected a lot of medicinal materials. Chang Feng was surprised that this girl was so lucky that she didn't encounter a single monster all morning. How come he never knew there were so few monsters here? At noon, Yan Xiangluo found a place to sit down and rest, took out a piece of bacon and ate it. Chang Feng's mouth watered when he smelled the fragrance. How come this girl had brought so many delicacies, but he hadn't even eaten them? Yuan Xiangluo was enjoying her meal when a palm-sized white dumpling not far away looked at her with its dark eyes. This little beast had been following her all morning. She felt it, but she didn't feel any demonic power in it, which meant that it was not a demonic beast. How could such a small creature live well in Huanghai forest without being a demonic beast? Just an ordinary little beast. See it staring at the bacon in your hand, want to eat it? She tore off a piece of bacon and threw it over. Xiaobai Dumpling jumped up to catch it accurately, and then disappeared, apparently looking for a place to eat bacon. Yan Xiangluo didn't care. After eating, he continued to practice collecting herbs. For some unknown reason, she didn't encounter a single monster all day long. She felt something was wrong. How could she continue to practice like this? During dinner in the evening, the little white dumpling appeared again. Yan Xiangluo was not stingy and gave him another share of the food. Bai Dumpling was not picky about food, and he ate whatever she gave him. In the evening, Yan Xiangluo couldn't find a cave like last night, so she chose a big and strong tree, climbed up to it, sat cross-legged on it and practiced, preparing to spend the night like this. Bai Tuanzi squatted on another tree and looked at her, and Yan Xiangluo didn't care. Since it had no ill intentions towards her and was just trying to get a bite to eat, just follow it if you want, and it would only last for a month at most. Changfeng in the dark was surprised. He remembered that the monsters here were of very high level, and even when he encountered them, they had to fight hard. Why didn't Ruan Xiangluo encounter any monsters all day? Sometimes he would sense that a monster was coming, but then suddenly leave, as if there was something terrible here. Is that little white dumpling some kind of powerful spiritual beast? But he didn't sense any powerful spiritual energy fluctuations in Bai Tuanzi. After practicing for another night, Yan Xiangluo stretched. No wonder they were asked to come out to practice. Absorbing spiritual power and practicing in Huanghai forest really felt like getting twice the result with half the effort. When Bai Tuanzi saw that she had quit practicing, he immediately became energetic. He stared at her with his dark eyes, and his meaning was very clear. Give me something delicious quickly. Yan Xiangluo threw it a piece of roasted chicken drumstick, and the white dumpling didn't hide it and ate it. In front of Yan Xiangluo, he held up the chicken drumstick that was bigger than its body and ate it. It looked very happy. Yan Xiangluo had breakfast, got down from the tree, and continued to wander in the forest. She had a great time collecting herbs for 2 days. Early on the third day, she thought it was time to go back. If she couldn't make it back to the cave at the time she made an appointment with Xuanhuan, she would break her promise. At this moment, the little white dumpling suddenly ran up to her, chirping at her, and pointed his paws in one direction to let her pass. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 43. Chapter 43, Falling Off the Cliff. Yan Xiangluo's long eyelashes flickered a few times. She looked at the direction it was pointing. After some hesitation, she decided to go and have a look. Bai Tuanzi ate so much of his own food, maybe he wanted to repay himself, but he didn't necessarily want to go over and see if it would not waste much time. So he walked towards the place pointed by Bai Tuanzi. Within a quarter of an hour, he arrived at the place Bai Tuanzi mentioned. However, this was a cliff, not the cliff where Xuanhuan and the others were staying. He stretched out his head and took a look. It was bottomless. Yes, cold sweat breaks out on my back. What is it doing? Bai Tuanzi pointed at the squeak below. Yan Xiangluo said doubtfully, you want me to go down? Bai Tuanzi actually nodded, and Yan Xiangluo quickly shook her head and said, no, this cliff is too deep. I can't fly in the air, so I can't get down. This cliff is different from the one where Xuanhuan stayed. The height of the cliff can be seen as soon as she looks up. She can still climb up and down with her spiritual power, but this is not a cliff, it is equivalent to an abyss. What is her cultivation level? Dare to go down. Bai Tuanzi was spinning around in a hurry. When he saw that she was about to go back, he jumped up and hit Ruan Xiangloo directly. His strength was quite strong. The unprepared Xiangloo was hit by this sudden power instantly. Xiangloo wanted to give himself a palm. He would believe that a beast who didn't know what kind of species was over. The original owner died like this, will she die like this again? At this moment, she discovered that Xiao Bai Tuanzi had followed her down, with his short limbs stretched out, and Tuanzi's body falling down like a small parachute, in the exact direction towards her. She was extremely confused. What was Xiao Bai Tuanzi doing, committing suicide? Have you ever heard that you need someone to accompany you if you commit suicide? The whistling of the wind passed by her ears, and she saw the top of the cliff disappearing from her sight. How high had she fallen? Has she not reached the bottom yet? Chang Feng, who was unprepared, was standing on the cliff at this time, and was very at a loss. The incident happened so suddenly that he did not react. He never expected that the little beast that had been following her for 2 days would suddenly knock Yan Xiangloo off the cliff. Went. Not everyone can go down this cliff. Those who can come back alive must at least have a cultivation level above the king level. He bit his lower lip and flew down into the air. The master was still waiting for her to suppress the poison. Nothing could happen to her. Yan Xiangloo felt that the process of falling was extremely long, but her mentality was much more stable than when she first fell. She turned around and looked down with great effort, and saw the water surface just a few feet away from her. Before she could react, she fell into the water and sank downwards. Bai Tuanzi's little paws tightly grabbed her dress and followed her down. Fortunately, the original owner knew how to swim. Yan Xiangloo adjusted her posture and prepared to swim up, but found a force sucking her up and preventing her from going up. An attraction that penetrates deep into the soul suddenly comes, making Yan Xiangloo's soul throb. This time she was really panicked. What was going on? Only then did she realize that the water here was actually warm, and the temperature became higher as it went down. This is a hot spring? Just as her heart was pounding, the water in the hot spring rose up without any wind, creating a vortex. A huge suction force in the vortex sucked her in, and her body, which could not swim up, fell into the vortex uncontrollably. The attraction of the whirlpool is very strong, and Yan Xiangloo cannot stop the speed of descent even with her strongest spiritual power. She finds that the attraction that penetrates deep into her soul comes from the bottom of the vortex, as if calling her to go there. Is there any treasure down here? Bai Tuanzi knew that, so he let him come down? In this case, she didn't resist anymore. The key is that resistance was useless. Following the attraction of the whirlpool, she wanted to see what was below that could make Bai Tuanzi knock her down so persistently. The hot spring was very deep, and the light became dimmer as you went down. The water temperature got higher and higher, and it was a little hot. She was speechless. Was she going to be cooked? At this moment, the power of the vortex disappeared, and she realized that she had reached the bottom of the hot spring and glanced at the white dumplings hanging around her waist. She was speechless. This white dumpling completely overturned her understanding of beasts in this world. Even if she didn't know what kind of beast it was, it could actually dive. Give it what it has. The white dumpling followed her clothes and tried to crawl into her arms. As soon as its claws were loosened, its body floated out. Yuan Xiangloo quickly fished it back. The white dumpling followed the strength of her hand and turned somersaults, falling into her arms. His little paws tightly grasped the skirt of her clothes, as if he was sharing the difficulties with her. Yan Xiangloo was moved by a beast for the first time. This spiritual beast was stupid or not. After just a few meals, it regarded itself as a good person, but she had never considered herself a good person. But this was not the time for her to be moved. She felt a powerful dangerous aura rushing towards her, and the direction was exactly the one that made her soul throb, which was the direction from which the summoning power came. In the past or not in the past? Xianxia only hesitated for a moment before making a decision. No matter how dangerous it was, she would go over and see what could attract her soul, and he forcefully pulled her down. Judging from Bai Tuanzi's persistence, she also felt that the things below were not ordinary things. But the dangerous aura made her have to be wary. Now that she was underwater, her strength was greatly reduced, and she couldn't bear to part with her hard-won good health. At this moment, Bai Tuanzi paddled out from her arms and swam forward. He looked back at her and motioned for her to follow. Seeing this, Xianxia followed. The dangerous aura became clearer and clearer. Suddenly, the water in front of her rippled. Bai Tuanzi turned over to avoid it. She also turned over to avoid the wave, and the powerful attack force passed by her. Then a huge black shadow swam toward her, a monster. After ordinary beasts awaken their spiritual consciousness, they will be promoted to higher level beasts. Because of different opportunities, they are divided into two types, one is a monster beast and the other is a spiritual beast. Monster beasts are beasts that were deceived by the demonic energy when they formed their spiritual consciousness. Spiritual beasts are beasts that resisted the temptation of the demonic energy when they formed their spiritual consciousness and advanced to become spiritual beasts. One word difference, but a huge difference in fate. A monster will remain a monster for the rest of its life. No matter how strong you are, you cannot escape from the level of a monster. But spiritual beasts are war beasts that can be promoted to a higher level. Although this is the case, it does not mean that the monsters are not powerful. On the contrary, because the monsters can only focus on cultivating their own monster power, their attack power will be stronger. Hence, the attacks of monster beasts are faster and more fierce, the methods of monster beasts are more vicious, and they will never show mercy to humans. Xianxia was shocked. There was such a powerful monster under this hot spring. It was really terrible. This is the territory of monsters and beasts, or is it in the water? Are you being forced to seek death? Bai Tuanzi, are you sure you don't want me to die? End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 44. Chapter 44 Over Control of Divine Consciousness. Not wanting to take the risk of confronting the monster directly, she immediately went upstream and left the other person's territory, so that it would not attack her. However, she sadly discovered that the summoning force was pulling her and not letting her leave, and she could not go up at all. There is no choice but to fight. The monsters swam toward her, and the attacks became closer and closer. She kept dodging the attacks, narrowly avoiding them every time. When she raised her hand, a shield of earth power blocked her in front of her. But she forgot that this place was underwater, and the defensive shield formed by the earth element was instantly washed away by the water. Xianxia almost wanted to curse. The inner clothes on her body were cut into strips by the attack power of the monster. Only then did she realize that the sex clothes were so strong. They should have been specially refined and had not been damaged at all. The demonic power must be destroyed, otherwise she would be naked. The monster's cultivation level is higher than hers. If she wants to save her life, she must fight back. With the thought, a red flying lotus appears in her hand. She has not tried using flying lotus underwater yet. She wonders whether the flying lotus's attack speed will be reduced due to the resistance of the water. With a move of his finger, half of the petals on the flying lotus flew out as thin as cicada wings. At the same time, one petal turned into three, and the petals suddenly tripled in size. The petals were as thin as cicada wings. Although the petals were as thin as cicada wings in the water, they were slower than on land. But still extremely fast. A wave of water forms behind the petals, showing the speed of the attack. There were too many petals, and the monster could not avoid them all. Many petals were buried in the monster's body, and a fishy smell suddenly came out. If it were not for the water, Xianxia would definitely vomit. She waved her hand, and the petals were pulled out of the monster's body. The petals that did not hit the target also flew back and fell back on the flying lotus in her hand. At the same time, the other half of the petals on the flying lotus had already attacked the monster. In the body, there were too many petals, and the monster that was unable to defend itself rolled over in pain, and powerful monster power burst out. The water beside Xianxia suddenly surged, causing her to tumble too, shaking her internal organs as if they were out of place. The rolling water was mixed with a powerful murderous aura, and the monster was extremely angry. Xianxia immediately used her metal power to form a protective screen in front of her. With a thought, the petals just retracted from the flying lotus flew out again, facing the attack force. Just when the attack force fell on her golden spiritual power barrier, her flying lotus also hit the target. Now all the flying lotus petals are in the monster's body. The demonic beast's demonic power is too strong. She has used the strongest spiritual power at this time to block it. The metal power has strong attack power and low defense power. However, her cultivation level is too low, which only reduces part of the demonic beast's attack power. The body was still hit by the reduced demon power, and rolled out with the force. The smell of blood surged up in his throat, and he spit out a mouthful of blood, which smeared in the water. She struggled to stabilize her body. She knew that her inner abdomen was injured, but the monster was not dead yet, so she might not be able to save her life from the next attack. A pair of eyes burst out with fierce light. She could never die in the hands of an underwater monster like this. Her rebirth must be meaningful. God would not let her die like this. Let go of your spiritual consciousness. If you can see it with the naked eye, you will definitely be able to see thin threads of spiritual consciousness affecting all the flying lotus petals in the monster's body. Xianxia muttered explosion silently. A series of spiritual consciousness pulled the petals out of the monster's body. In an instant, the monster's huge body was cut apart by the petals. After struggling painfully for a moment, the wave of water caused by the monster power finally released hit Xianxia, making her unable to help but vomit out another mouthful of blood. Come. Not caring that she was underwater, she quickly took out a repair pill and drank it. Sure enough, although the perfect quality pill was lower in grade, it had an excellent effect. The pain in her internal organs was instantly relieved. At this time, the monster's movements became weaker and weaker, and its divided body was scattered in the water. The remaining incomplete body slowly sank to the bottom of the water and became motionless. Xianxia breathed a sigh of relief. The petals of the flying lotus flew back. She put away the flying lotus and covered her head with her hands, her body trembling a little. Her flying lotus is a growth weapon and is contracted, so it can be over-controlled with divine consciousness. However, unlike other growth weapons, her flying lotus has a total of 81 petals, which requires more than a tiny bit of divine consciousness. There are only 27 petals on the flying lotus. In fact, each petal is 3 pieces put together. Because the petals are as thin as cicada wings, they cannot be seen clearly. Normally, only one or a few petals are used. Even if there are more than a dozen petals, one does not need to use spiritual consciousness to override them. This is the first time that spiritual consciousness is used to override all the petals. It was beyond the scope of her own strength, her spiritual consciousness was consumed too much, and her head hurt. She knew clearly that her spiritual consciousness was injured. She did not forget how she got down. She endured her headache and swam in the direction of the summoning force. But if she went to take a look, she could not go back up. She had no choice. The distance was getting closer and closer, and she found a small white mass below that was shining brightly. Could it be the treasure that attracted her soul? She swam over and reached out to touch it. The soft white ball moved, revealing a small head. It turned out to be a white ball. Bai Tuanzi glanced at her, then turned around and continued its actions. Yan Xiongluo took a closer look and saw clearly that Bai Tuanzi was digging at the mud underneath with its little paws that had no clear boundary with its round body, and the light she just saw was it actually came from under the mud. Needless to say, she understood that below was the treasure that made her soul throb and had the power to summon her. With Bai Tuanzi's movement, a red bead as big as a fist was revealed. Bai Tuanzi tried hard to pick it up, but his body was about the same size as a bead, his claws were short and his body was small, so he couldn't pick it up. Yan Xiongluo reached out and poked Bai Tuanzi in a funny way, and Bai Tuanzi turned somersaults in the water with her movements. Yan Xiongluo reached out and dug out the beads from the mud thoroughly, removing the mud. The fist-sized beads were round and lying in her palm, fiery red, and something seemed to be flowing inside. The beads are warm and feel comfortable where they touch the palm. I don't know if it's because they are nourished in the hot springs. At this time, she clearly felt that the summoning power was emanating from the beads. I don't know if it's an illusion, but as soon as I got the beads, the headache caused by excessive consumption of spiritual consciousness seemed to be relieved a little. Seeing that she had picked up the bead and the white dumpling, he was anxious. He suddenly hugged her hand and climbed to the bead. He spread his limbs on the bead, showing its possessiveness. This is mine, mine. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 45. Chapter 45 Magic Beads. Yan Xiongluo is a little funny. Zuzi summoned her, so naturally he is destined to her. Bai Tuanzi knows his stuff. At this moment, I realized that I must have been wrong before. The emotional Baichuanzi was not repaying my kindness for eating, but wanted me to find treasures for it. I was so moved before. But she felt more and more that this little guy was smart and fun, so she swam up with the beads and white dumplings. Sure enough, he left without any hindrance this time. As soon as Baichuanzi came out of the hot spring, he didn't care about his wet fur and wanted to hug the bead and leave. However, the bead was about the same size as his body and was too big and heavy for him. He couldn't hold it without the water. After trying for a while, it sat desperately on the bead, looked at the bead, and then at Yan Xiongluo. Its dark eyes moved rapidly, obviously thinking about what to do. Ruan Xiongluo didn't bother it. She put the beads into a stone nest next to the hot spring. She wiped the clothes on her body with her spiritual power and dried them. After checking that there was no one around, she found a place and broke the beads into pieces. Tiao took off his inner clothes, put on his religious clothes again, and returned to the hot spring to take a look at the hot spring. Hey, why does it feel like the temperature of the hot spring is dropping? She squatted down and put her hand into the water. Indeed, the water temperature was dropping. She looked at the red bead. Could it be that this hot spring was formed because of the bead? If the bead left the hot spring, it would cease to exist. She didn't care whether the hot spring existed or not. Now she was curious about what kind of treasure this fiery red bead was. The white dumpling shook the water on his body, and his fur dried. It was as wet as a little mouse, but in an instant it turned into a cute white dumpling. The little paw pointed at the beads, then pointed at Yang Xiongluo, and then squeaked. Yan Xiongluo squatted down, looked at Bai Tuanzi and teased it with a smile. I killed the monster and I brought up the beads, so naturally they are mine. The white dumpling lay on the bead and squeaked. The meaning was obvious, no, it found the bead and it belongs to it. A hint of smile flashed through Yan Xiongluo's beautiful eyes. You can't lift it, so what can you do if I give it to you? Bai Tuanzi was stunned. He couldn't take it away. Even if she didn't fight with him, he couldn't take it away. Yan Xiongluo took another healing elixir. The injured internal organs were completely healed this time, but the injured consciousness could not be cured by the elixir. Picked up the beads, and also the white dumplings. Look, You can't stop me from taking the beads. Yan Xianglue was very patient with Bai Tuanzi. Although Bai Tuanzi knocked her off the cliff, it was because she knew there was a hot spring below that she could not fall to death, because Bai Tuanzi got a fiery red bead, although she still doesn't know what it is. Something, but it can form a hot spring in such a large area of water, which shows how powerful this bead is. Let it go and study it slowly later. Bai Tuanzi's soft little body froze immediately after hearing her words. This is the fact. It seems that he can't stop her from taking the beads now. How about you come with me so you can see the beads? I can cook a lot of delicious food and you don't have to look for food. Yan Xianglue lured her away. Such a cute little guy must be taken home so that he will no longer be alone and have company. Bai Tuanzi immediately became energetic. If he followed her, he could look at the beads and eat the human delicacies. It was not a loss at all. He nodded immediately. These beads are treasures. You can't hold them like this, they will be snatched away. I'll put them away first and let you play with them when I get back. Yan Xianglue knew that Bai Tuanzi was very spiritual and could understand her words. Sure enough, after she finished speaking, Bai Tuanzi reluctantly got off the beads. Yan Xianglue put away the fiery red beads, put the white dumpling on her shoulder, and gave it a fire chicken leg to chew on. She looked around. When she fell, she knew how high the cliff was and it was impossible to climb up. However, even if it was impossible, she had to climb up and promised Ji Zhozhong to suppress the poison for him today. She could not keep her promise. At this time, Chang Feng, who had been looking for her several times, thought she had been killed. Yakong left and went back to report to his master, but Perfect missed her. Yan Xianglue walked for a while but couldn't find a suitable route to climb up. The main reason was that the bottom of the cliff was concave and the top was protruding. The was not suitable for climbing up. It was much more dangerous than the rock climbing walls in the previous life. Although there were repairs because the spiritual power is there, but I don't have the confidence to climb up. Moreover, she found that after putting away the fiery red beads in her hand, her injured consciousness made her head hurt again. She took out the beads and held them in her hands, and her head hurt less. Can the bead of emotion heal her injured consciousness? Since she can't find a way out and is destined to break her promise, she must first cultivate her spiritual consciousness. The danger in Wanghai Forest is not just a monster. It's only her 4th day of training, and there are still more than 20 days left. It is impossible not to use divine consciousness. The experience of fighting underwater monsters allowed her to develop another way of using the flying lotus. She also had ways to deal with monsters that were stronger than her. Seeing Yan Xianglue take out the beads, Bai Tuanzi immediately jumped up, fell on the beads, and lay motionless on the beads. What happened in the blink of an eye? Yan Xianglue was stunned for a moment. Is this little guy so fast? Yan Xianglue twitched the corner of her mouth. She thought she would give up the beads just for a bite to eat. She was quite persistent. She is not a stingy person either. Didn't she just go back and leave it to play with? Thinking that I also need to regain consciousness, I ignored Bai Tuanzi and just lay down on it if I liked. Yan Xianglue found a tree, climbed to the highest point on the tree, sat cross-legged on it, held the fiery red beads in her left hand, pinched the flower fingers with her right hand, and began to practice. Absorb spiritual energy, start to close your eyes and use spiritual power to cultivate your consciousness. It is easy to damage the spiritual consciousness, but it is difficult to repair it. She was very fortunate that the demonic beast she encountered this time was not much higher than her cultivation strength, and it only slightly injured her consciousness. Even this slight injury was enough for her to repair. Fortunately, this red bead can help relieve her headache, making her less uncomfortable and able to concentrate on repairing her consciousness. Spiritual power is absorbed into the body, then goes around the abdomen and sinks into the dantian, and then turns into streams of power to cultivate spiritual consciousness. This process is simple to say, but it can be done without any distraction. Seeing that she had started practicing, Bai Tuanzi looked at the bead and then at the huiling chicken leg in his hand. He still couldn't resist the temptation and sat on the bead and started eating until he had eaten up all the huiling chicken leg. Xuanhuan didn't stop practicing either. Bai Tuanzi lay on the beads again and slept with his eyes closed. In fact, he was also practicing. The whole morning passed, but Xuanhuan did not move. The afternoon passed, and Xuanhuan still did not move. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 46. Chapter 46 Opening the Space. When it was completely dark, Xuanhuan opened her eyes and was staring at the fiery red bead in her hand. What kind of treasure was this bead? Originally, she thought that her injured consciousness could be restored to the point where she no longer had headaches in one day. But there was actually a power in this bead that entered her consciousness through her spiritual power. As the day passed, the injury to her consciousness not only healed, but also seemed to expand. The larger the sea of consciousness, the stronger the consciousness. Could it be that this bead has the effect of powerful spiritual consciousness? However, after her spiritual consciousness was repaired and she practiced again, there was no change in the sea of consciousness. She was a little confused as to whether the expansion of the sea of consciousness was due to the beads. She was about to put the beads away, but Bai Tuanzi, who had been hungry all day, protected the beads and refused to let her put them away. The speed was too fast, and its claws scratched Xuanhuan's hand. The trace of blood was not serious, but after the bead in her hand was stained with her trace of blood, it actually sucked on her wound, and a trace of blood entered the bead. Inside. Xuanhuan couldn't shake off the beads even if she wanted to, but Bai Tuanzi was thrown off. She watched blankly as the beads glowed red and then disappeared. The white dumpling didn't notice that there was a flash of red light on its body, so it jumped into her palm and lifted up her sleeve to look for it. Xuanhuan stared blankly at the place where she had been scratched by Bai Tuanzi's claws. It was intact as before, with no trace of scratch left. There was a connection between her consciousness, Bai Tuanzi, and Zhu. Bai Tuanzi was so busy looking for the red bead that he didn't notice that it accidentally cut Xuanhuan's hand and came into contact with her blood. Because he didn't know that there was no objection, a contract was formed naturally. Xuanhuan heard its heartbeat clearly. Where are the fire beads? Where are they? Without the fire beads, how can I restore my cultivation? My magnificent beast has fallen into such a state that I have no shame to see anyone. Xuanhuan's face was covered with black lines, and the fist-sized white dumpling turned out to be a mythical beast. What kind of mythical beast was it? In her understanding, the mythical beast should be as tall and powerful as the green dragon and white tiger, or as noble and beautiful as the red bird, or even as strong as the Xuanhuan. The white dumpling in front of her that was the size of her fist was really different from her. I can't connect the known mythical beasts. Xuanhuan looked at the cute white dumpling rummaging for beads in her sleeves, and felt a burning sensation in her heart. She opened her clothes and looked at her chest. The heat came from a pair of beads worn by the original owner. It comes from the flower-shaped jade pendant that carries the ancient skills of Pangu flower. The jade pendant not only generates heat but also emits a faint blue light. This jade pendant was given to her by the original owner's parents to carry the ancient Pangu flower blooming technique. She has been wearing this jade pendant since she received the technique inside. After all, the flower shape is very special and she likes it very much. But what happened to the jade pendant today? At this moment, she felt a pain in her heart, as if she had been pierced. She felt that a drop of her heart blood was sucked out by the jade pendant, and she sank into the jade pendant without even reacting to stop it. The light of the jade pendant suddenly increased. After the light passed, the jade pendant disappeared, and then a flower-shaped engraving appeared on her heart, which was exactly what the jade pendant looked like. Xianxia reached out and touched it. What's going on? Could it be that the jade pendant is a spiritual object like the flying lotus hidden weapon given to her by the original owner's father, and can be contracted? At this moment, 4 words Pangu space appeared in his spiritual consciousness. Pangu space. Just after she read these 4 words, the figure disappeared. Xianxia looked around in shock. Is this Pangu space? The sky was gray, the ground was bare, and as far as the eye could see, it was empty, with nothing in it. No, there is a very precious thing in the world, aura. The spiritual energy here is very rich, and it is very clean and rich. The name is so loud and grand, but it doesn't seem to match the space. After walking a few steps, he turned around and looked around, but found nothing else. Xianxia was not disappointed. There is no spiritual energy in such a large space. It is also very powerful when used as a storage space. It can hold any number of things. It is much better than a storage ring. I have already made a profit. What's more, there is such a rich spiritual energy here. You can come in and practice anytime and anywhere in the future, and you don't have to stay in the valley anymore. Thinking of this, I feel very happy. After making a lot of money, the original owner's parents are still very reliable. Although they gave her such a difficult technique to practice, this space is too precious. It is a portable space that no one can take away. At this time, she understood that the Pangu flower blossom technique carrier was a space, but it only needed her chance to open it. The fire beads she got today should be treasures such as genius treasures. After contracting, the power was strong enough, so the space was opened. After all, when she condensed the nascent soul before, she did not have the power to make the lotus platform appear, so the space could not be opened. Now that the space is open, what about the lotus platform? She looked inside her danshan, but the lotus platform still did not appear, and she was not disappointed. Didn't her master say that the lotus platform just did not appear? It was the first time that Xianxia looked forward to Pangu Huikai Kung Fu. With the thought, she came out of the space. Seeing her sudden disappearance, Bai Tuanzi has been looking for her uneasily. When he sees her appear, he jumps into her arms with a squeak, not giving up on looking for the fire beads. Xianxia looked at the white dumpling, and then at the flower-shaped mark on her chest. The flower had 5 petals, and a fiery red bead was imprinted on one of the petals. So, Bai Tuanzi accidentally cut her hand, but as a blessing in disguise, she contracted 2 treasures, a mythical beast and a fire bead, and also opened up the Pangu space. This time I came to Wanghai Forest and it was a blast of luck. Although it remains to be seen whether Bai Tuanzi is a treasure, this fire bead is indeed a treasure, and it is not an ordinary treasure. No matter what level of continent it is a priceless treasure. At first she didn't know what kind of treasure this bead was, but Bai Tuanzi said it was a fire bead. Knowing the name, she knew what the bead was. It is a fire bead among the 5 elements of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. As for how the 5 elements pearl fell to such a low-level continent, she had no way of knowing, but she felt as if she had been hit by a pie falling from the sky. Tuanzi, stop looking for it, Huazu has made a contract with me. Xianxia couldn't stand Bai Tuanzi's stupidity anymore, so she reminded it. Now that you have contracted with it, you can naturally communicate with it spiritually. When Bai Tuanzi heard Xianxia's voice echoing in his mind, he was so frightened that his hair stood up, and he jumped out of her palm. His body fell to the ground, a soft ball, motionless, but his consciousness was shouting, when was this divine beast contracted? What's going on? End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 47. Chapter 47 I'm here. Xianxia was helpless and bent down to pick up the white dumplings. Now that we have signed a contract, you are my spiritual pet. Let me give you a name. You are as white as a cloud and fat as a puff. From now on, I will call you Yun. Let's go together. I have a name, I don't want to be called Yun Tuan by Tuanzi protested. You have a name, what is it? Xianxia asked curiously. She didn't have to give it a name. If it had a name, she could just call it its original name. Bai Tuanzi was stunned. He thought about it for a while and couldn't remember his name. He suddenly collapsed in Xianxia's palm in frustration. Not only can it not remember its own name, it can't even remember what kind of mythical beast it is. Xianxia rubbed its whistling little body and said tolerantly, "It doesn't matter if you can't remember it. Call it Yun Tuan first and change it later when you remember it." The cloud was still paralyzed, and Xianxia ignored it. She looked at the darkening sky and wondered how she could leave here. Did Xuanhuan think that she had deceived his silver needle and ran away? In fact, she could not suppress the poison for him. Alas, what a sorrow. However, now that Pangu's space is open, she no longer worries about her own safety. She has a safe place to stay at night. During battle, she can hide in the space if it is a life or death situation. Thinking about this, she feels much better. At this time, Chang Feng went back to report that Xianxia fell off the cliff. Uge and Xian both felt that she was in danger. After all, Chang Feng followed and searched but couldn't find anyone. Zhongfeng narrowed his eyes and said, "You said there is a hot spring down there." Chang Feng said, "Yes, the hot spring area is very large. Let's go and look for her again." Zhongfeng didn't believe that that weird girl would die like this. Uge said disapprovingly, "Master, it's too dangerous down there." "You don't have to go," Zhongfeng said calmly. Uge suddenly fell silent. His master had been very dissatisfied with him in the past 2 days and he could not say anything more. Xian and Chang Feng glanced at Uge and thought he was a little strange. Zhongfeng has not stayed in this cave for the past 3 days. He has been looking for the medicinal materials needed for his antidote prescription. He just came back today. The 4 of them left the cave, led by Chang Feng, and headed straight for the cliff where Xianxia fell. By the time they reached the cliff, it was already dark. Xian looked down and said, "Master, why don't you go down early?" Zhongfeng shook his head and said, "Go down now, the hope of rescuing her is greater." Xian knew that what Zhongfeng said was true, but it was too dangerous to go into the dark world. This was a place where high-level monsters loved to hang out. However, he also knew that the master said exactly what he wanted to do, and he must do it. "I'll go down first." Chang Feng had gone down once during the day. He had some experience and knew where it was safe to stay. Zhongfeng nodded, and when Chang Feng flew down from the sky, he followed, Xian followed him, and Uge ended. The 4 of them flew down from the air, and it took them a while to reach the bottom. "The hot spring is right in front." Chang Feng pointed in the direction ahead. Zhongfeng looked up at the cliff. If she fell from the top, she would easily fall into the hot spring. The girl must have fallen into the hot spring. I wonder if she knows how to swim. He walked over and looked at Chang Feng in confusion. "Is this the hot spring you are talking about? Where is this water with no temperature at all, a hot spring?" Chang Feng said in shock, "Master, the water was indeed warm when I came down in the morning." Zhongfeng looked at the shore on the other side of the water. Maybe there was some treasure under the water. It was the girl's chance that the treasure was caught by her. Got it, so the water here loses its temperature. Let's walk along the water bank and look for people separately. Zhongfeng took the lead in walking in one direction, and Xian quickly followed him. Chang Feng followed Uge in the other direction, so that when they met, they would have searched around and not miss anything. Xian shouted as he walked, "Miss you, Miss you. Chang Feng also imitated Music Xian, shouting as he walked. After it got dark, Yan Xiangluo found a hidden place and took Yun Tuan into the space. She was worried about encountering some powerful monsters. Although she had not encountered any monsters in the past 3 days, it didn't mean there weren't any. Night is not suitable for fighting. Thinking about how to get up at dawn tomorrow morning. Even though she was in the space, she could hear the sounds outside. She vaguely heard someone calling her, and her eyes lit up. Could it be that Zhizhong's people were looking for her? She quickly took Bai Tuanzi out of the space. Sure enough, the voice was heard more clearly. It was the voice of the alchemist next to Zhizhong. She responded immediately, "I'm here." Music Xian was stunned for a moment, then said happily, "Master, it's Miss Yu's voice." Zhizhong naturally heard it, and he immediately ran towards the direction of the source of the sound. Music Xian hurriedly followed. The two of them saw a beautiful girl standing there with a white dumpling squatting on her shoulders. Look at them. Obviously he was very happy to see them, with bright smiles on their faces. Fortunately, you came here, otherwise I wouldn't know how to get up there. It's not a good habit to break a promise. Yan Xiangluo honestly stated her thoughts. Zhizhong looked at the white dumpling squatting on her shoulder, a spiritual beast? Although she couldn't feel the spiritual power on it, there was an invisible coercion on it. Chang Feng said that she was lucky. She had never encountered a monster before falling off the cliff, but a small beast as big as a palm followed her. It seems that the reason lies in this spiritual beast. Even the well-informed Zhizhong didn't know what kind of beast this was. Music Xian looked her over and asked, "Is Miss Yu okay?" "It's okay, I just fell into the water." Yan Xiangluo didn't say anything about what she encountered underwater, nor did she mention the matter of getting the fire beads. "Send a signal to Chang Feng and the others, and we'll go up first," Zhizhong said to Music Xian. Music Xian took out a flare and fired it. Chang Feng and Yu saw it and came towards their direction. Zhizhong said to Ruan Xiangluo, "I'm offended." As soon as he finished speaking, he hugged her around the waist and flew into the air, heading straight for the cliff. Yang Xiangloxing Xinjian appeared again. "It's good to be strong. She should practice hard and break through to the king level as soon as possible. Then she can fly in the air, and no cliff can stop her." The two fell onto the cliff. Without waiting for Music Xian and the others, Zhizhong took her directly to the cave before. There was no safer place nearby. Music Xian waited until Chang Feng and Yu went up the cliff together. When he didn't see the two of them, he hurried to the cave. When the three of them returned to the cave, Zhizhong took off his shirt, with a total of 81 silver needles stuck in his front and back, just like a hedgehog. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 48. Chapter 48, Suppressing Fetal Poison. Yan Xiangluo saw the three people stopping them from approaching Zhizhong. "Don't get close to him, the time for one stick of incense will be over." Yu didn't want to listen to her, but was pulled by Music Xian and Chang Feng, so he could only reluctantly stand aside with the two of them. The time it takes to burn a stick of incense is actually very fast, but for the three people at this time, it is extremely long. Yan Xiangluo sat aside and observed Zhizhong's condition until the time for burning incense was up, and she took off all the silver needles. Meditate for an hour, let the spiritual power penetrate all the meridians, and feel if there are any toxins in places other than the danshan, Yan Xiangluo said to Zhizhong. Yeah, Zhizhong responded and began to meditate. Yan Xiangluo cleaned the silver needles with the jar of wine that Chang Feng gave her 3 days ago, put them back into the needle roll and the jade box in order, and put them away. Music Xian then asked softly, "Miss Yu, how are you?" Yan Xiangluo had a good impression of Music Xian and Chang Feng. She glanced at Music Xian and said, "We'll know in an hour." Yu rolled his eyes at her. The acupuncture was finished. Would she not know the result? Maybe it failed. An hour was neither too long nor too short. Xianxia walked to the side and sat down, took out some food, and fed the white dumplings to herself while eating. Xian looked so envious, wishing he could become the white dumpling in her arms so that he could taste the delicious food in her hands. It's strange, he's not a very voracious person, so why is he so greedy when he sees Xianxia eating? After eating, Yuntuan squatted obediently on Xianxia shoulders, and Xianxia sat cross-legged and began to practice. Young girl is really diligent, Chang Feng said with emotion. These past few days, he has followed Xianxia to protect her secretly, but he knows that she is either collecting medicine or practicing, and he is not willing to waste any time. Xian nodded in agreement. No wonder the master always says that we are not diligent enough. I was not convinced before. Only when I saw Miss Yu did I know what diligence means. Xianxia heard their conversation, but ignored it, focusing on absorbing spiritual energy and practicing. After fighting a monster in the water, she gained a new understanding. She naturally had to seize the time to practice while the feeling was still there. Her goal is to reach the spiritual level after this month's training. She can't do it if she doesn't work hard. Xian and the other three stopped talking and looked at Jizhong intently. An hour passed. Jizhong opened his eyes. Xianxia was still practicing. Xian and the other three hurried over and said in unison, "Master, how is the effect?" Jijudian nodded, "Very good." Although there were only 2 words, Xian knew that the effect of Ruanxiangluo's acupuncture was exactly as she said. It could suppress the hair for at least a year without causing poisonous hair. He was a little regretful that he had not seen Ruanxiangluo acupuncture on his master with his own eyes. Although it is impossible to know it by just looking at it, but you can also learn something. There are doctors who don't want acupuncture, they just don't want to spend the time to learn it. Moreover, it is not possible to learn to the level of Xianxia just by wanting to learn. His master's medical skills are not low, but he does not know how to use silver needles. Jizhong glanced at Xianxia who was practicing on the side, and a dark light flashed across his eyes. It seemed that everyone in Tianshan Imperial City had missed the point. She was only 10 years old when her parents had an accident. Under the eyes of these people, amidst the abuse and taunts, she grew up like a tenacious grass. When she did not hesitate to use the Qingyun sex admission token to break off the relationship with her family, he knew that she had a clear plan for her life. She had never wanted to go to the Qingyun section, she had wanted to come in the first place. The one is Xianyun sect. Xian saw that Jizhong was looking at Xiangluo for a while and said in a low voice, "Master, do we want to send someone to Xianyun sect? The implication is to send someone in to keep an eye on Xiangluo. After all, there are still nearly 3 years left before Lingquan can start. At least 2 more acupunctures are needed from Xiangluo to at least ensure that this girl is alive." Jizhong retracted his gaze and glanced at Xian. "Do you think the peak master of Thousand Poison Peak can't protect his only direct disciple?" Xian wanted to say, "Weren't they the ones who went to rescue people tonight?" But considering that he is a sect veteran, how could he not be protected by the elders secretly? He would definitely come to the rescue at the critical moment of his life. Uge interrupted, "Master, someone from the clan has arrived. The old men in the clan were sent by him, and they came here for the purpose of the master's marriage. He sent back the news of the master's dissolution of the engagement without the master's permission, and he felt a little guilty." Jizhong glanced at him and said, "Go back tomorrow morning." Hualuo withdrew his gaze and looked at Xiangluo. He discovered that this girl was very involved in practicing and would not quit practicing until dawn. And every time she practices, she absorbs a lot of spiritual energy. At least he can clearly feel the surge of spiritual energy around her. Jizhong also started practicing. The three of them saw that Jizhong had begun to practice and Yuan Xiangleo was also practicing. They were too embarrassed to be lazy, so they all found a place to practice at the entrance of the cave, which could provide security and practice at the same time. The five of them practiced silently in the cave. At dawn, Yan Xiangleo quit the practice on time. Seeing that the four of them were also practicing, she knew that Jizhong was fine. She glanced at the cloud that had been lying on her shoulder all night, held it in her palm, smiled and said softly, "Are you hungry?" The voice of the cloud immediately sounded in her consciousness, "Master, I am hungry. I can eat a whole fire chicken." Yan Xiangleo was speechless. It could eat such a small thing and so many things. It had eaten everything there. Although its belly was round, it was not big. "I'll catch a fire chicken later and roast it for you." Yan Xiangleo rubbed Yun Tuan's soft little body and said to her. Jizhong also quit cultivation when Yan Xiangleo quit cultivation. His phoenix eyes opened as if there was a river of stars flowing through it. "Thank you very much, miss. Everyone takes what they need, so we say goodbye. If you still need it next year, come to see me at the Xuanhuan section." Yuan Xiangleo stood up, put the cloud on her shoulders, and walked towards the entrance of the cave. Jizhong glanced at the clouds on her shoulders and reminded her, "If you want to practice, let your spiritual pet put away the pressure." "Huh?" Yan Xiangleo asked in confusion, and then understood what Jizhong meant. Only then did she know why she hadn't encountered any monsters in the past 3 days. Her feelings were because of the clouds. I haven't encountered a single monster since I encountered the clouds." "Thank you for reminding me." After saying that, Yuan Xiangleo didn't stay much and left directly. Yu looked at her back. Did she really have no interest in her master? Otherwise, why would he leave so happily? The four of them also left the cave and returned to Tianshan Imperial City. Yan Xiangleo did not climb up again this time, but went down to the bottom of the cliff, chose a direction to continue practicing, and tapped Yun Tuan's little head with her finger. "Your master is here to practice. Use your magical beast power, put it away." End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 49. Chapter 49. Meeting an acquaintance again. 1. "Master, your cultivation is too weak. The cultivation of the spiritual beasts here is too high," Yun Tuan reminded her. "If I hadn't fallen in love with her delicious food before, how could I have used the pressure of the divine beasts to scare away the monsters that came close to her? I can't beat you, so why don't you just release your pressure?" Yan Xiangleo nodded Yun Tuan's head in a funny way. She now has a life-saving Pangu dimension, so she is really more confident. Okay, Yun Tuan thought the same thing. "Master, don't forget to roast the chicken." Yun Tuan is very persistent in eating. "Don't forget it. Look at the delicious spiritual beasts there. We hunt them, roast them, and eat them," Yuan Xiangleo said. "It is unlikely that there are spiritual beasts as weak as the fire spirit chicken here, and some of them have entered the bellies of other monsters." So she didn't have to be picky. As long as the meat of the spiritual beast was edible, her cooking skills would make it delicious. Yun Tuan immediately became energetic and pointed with his little paw. "Master, go over there. There is a nest of speeding rabbits over there. We will carry it to it." Yan Xiangleo's lips twitched. Why did she feel that this journey of experience was going astray? However, she still walked in the direction pointed by Yun Tuan. The food she brought was not enough to last for a month. She still had to find a way to solve the problem of food. Hunting low-level spiritual beasts for food was the first choice for all those who experienced in the forest. Sure enough, I saw a speeding rabbit's nest after a while. The entrance of the hole was well concealed, but I couldn't bear the presence of Yun Tuan, a food-hungry beast. Yan Xiangloo took the whole family away without even using her spiritual power. Yan Xiangloo once again told Yun Tuan not to release the pressure of the divine beasts during her training, otherwise, she would feel like she was just here for fun. Yun Tuan repeatedly promised that it would not interfere with its master's training. It is also its wish to make its master stronger. The master of a majestic divine beast cannot be so weak. However, it can sense that the aura in the master's dungeon is very strong, and the future master will be very strong. I found a small stream and cleaned up the running rabbits. I didn't throw away the rabbit skins. They could be sold for money. Although they weren't worth much, the mosquitoes were still meat no matter how small they were. Took out the seasonings she had prepared, and then started grilling meat by the stream. Clouds were jumping excitedly on her shoulders. With so much grilled meat, she could eat it to her heart's content. Therefore, Yan Xiangloo once again saw how much the palm-sized cloud ate. She turned its little body over and looked at it. Then she looked at several speeding rabbit meats. She only ate a larger rabbit leg. The rest went into Yun Tuan's belly. Where did it eat so much meat? Is there a bottomless pit in such a small belly? Yun Tuan, who was being tossed and tossed, was very well behaved after being fed and drunk, and allowed Yun Xiangloo to rub her again and again without resisting at all. Yan Xiangloo gave up in the end. It was such a small thing with such a big appetite. Fortunately, it could find the spirit beast on its own. Otherwise, she would not have to do anything in the future and would become a breeder. Although she ate breakfast a little late, she ate it anyway, and Yan Xiang chose a direction to continue practicing. Yun Tuan is very self-conscious and has restrained his aura completely. If someone saw it, they would think it was an ordinary little beast without aura. Yan Xiangloo practiced while walking and collecting herbs. This time, there was Pangu space. She planted all the herbs she collected in the space. Although the sky was gray and the ground was bare, the site was far away. Are all empty, with nothing, but full of spiritual energy. She has no time to dispose of many medicinal materials. If planted in this space, even if they cannot grow, the medicinal materials can continue to maintain sufficient spiritual energy. It was almost noon when Yan Xiangloo heard the sound of fighting and the sound of a woman screaming in surprise. The voice sounded familiar to Yan Xiangloo. When she listened carefully, wasn't it the voice of Lu Yuexi and Mengfei? Hearing the sound, the battle was fierce. After letting go of his spiritual consciousness, he found that the demon was very powerful. It was obvious that they had encountered a powerful demon beast. Ruan Xiangloo raised her eyebrows. She was not polite when Lu Yuexi gave her the powder to attract the beasts, and gave her the same powder to attract the beasts. However, the amount was not large, and they would not carry it for at least 4 days. This meant that they were lucky. Not too good. I thought that although I was at the 7th level of the UN level, my strength was the weakest among the 15 of them, and it had been a drag in the past. As for Baitang Yunyu, she is not worried. The prince of a country will have no shortage of means to save his life. Besides, isn't it necessary to gain experience after coming out? You can't gain experience if you don't exceed your own strength. She didn't want to cause trouble either. After thinking about it, she turned around and walked in the opposite direction and left very quickly. She didn't know when she left that at this time, the entire team hated Lu Yuexi. She usually acted like a fairy, but this time she came out to practice and learned about her character. She would only scream when she encountered a powerful monster. It's fine if she's not strong enough and doesn't hold back, but she is a monster attractor. For 4 days, they have been fighting monsters almost all the time, and they are all exhausted. Not only one person, but also everyone else had the idea that they would not team up with Lu Yuexi for the next training session. After Ruan Xiangloo left, she took out the food and continued walking while eating. Yun Tuan didn't pick and choose, and ate whatever was given to her. Ruan Xiangloo, who was eating happily, suddenly heard Xuanhuan's voice in her consciousness. Ringed. Master, there is a monster ahead, with intermediate strength, equivalent to the 5th or 6th level of the human spirit level. Yan Xiangluo immediately put away the food. The flying lotus appeared in her hand, ready for battle. Xuanhuan, find a place to hide. I won't ask you for help, and you are not allowed to release the pressure. Yuan Xiangluo picked up Xuanhuan on her shoulders and threw it out. It was sitting on her shoulder, and the monster dared to attack her. The cloud that was thrown out turned somersaults in mid-air, and then fell into the grass beside it, following Ruanxiang in secret. Yun Xiangluo is its owner, and her life must be saved, otherwise her life will be lost. In a moment, a huge gray-spotted wolf appeared, staring at Yu Xiangluo with its green eyes, as if he saw something delicious. Yan Xiangluo was not afraid when she saw the gray-spotted wolves, who were too taller than her. Instead, she felt a strong will to fight. She discovered that every time she fought a battle that exceeded her own strength, she gained a lot, and it was easier to absorb spiritual power. Therefore, before the gray-spotted wolf could attack, she took the lead and attacked with a golden spiritual power. The metal element itself is a powerful attack force. At this time, she struck with all her strength, and a golden light rushed towards the gray-spotted wolf. Gray-spotted wolf obviously didn't realize that the weak human girl in front of him actually dared to initiate a provocation. With a cry, a line of demon power rushed towards her gold power. The two powers collided and made a loud noise. Yan Xiangluo was the weaker one in the end. She knew it herself, so after the attack was sent, her body had already dodged it. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 50. Chapter 50 Meeting an Acquaintance Again, 2. At the same time as she dodged, the gray-spotted wolf's attack knocked her away and landed where she was just now, with a big crater being made on the ground. If this happens to her, she will definitely die. While Yan Xiangluo was dodging, the flying lotus in her hand had already attacked. This time she directly used 9 petals. After flying out, they turned into 27 petals, which flew directly towards the gray-spotted wolf's head, front legs and go on the hind legs. Gray-spotted wolf didn't take her flying lotus's attack power seriously at all, but he jumped flexibly to avoid part of it, and used his demonic power to resist the rest. Yan Xiangluo then realized that there was too much difference in strength and her flying lotus could not attack into the opponent's body. The gray-spotted wolf's attack force shook off her flying lotus and ran directly towards her. Before she could dodge, a shield formed by earth power blocked her in front of her. At the same time, she took a step back and another earth power hit her. The shield appeared in front of her. Her worries were not unnecessary. Sure enough, the first shield was easily destroyed by the gray-spotted wolf's demonic power, and the demonic power fell directly on the second earth-type shield. The shield was shattered again, and at the same time, the remaining force knocked her out. His body flew backwards, and a mouthful of blood spurted out from his throat. It was obvious that he was seriously injured. She ignored her injuries, her hands were not idle, and the flying lotus she took back was shot out again. At the same time, the flying lotus in her hand was thrown out by her, suspended in front of the gray-spotted wolf, and the spiritual power was input into the flying lotus. A series of crisp ringtones rang out from Xianxia's ecstasy bell, but only Yan Xiangluo and gray-spotted wolf could hear the ringtone. Sure enough, when the ecstasy bell rang, the gray-spotted wolf slowed down and his eyes became misty. But soon, the gray-spotted wolf started to struggle. Seeing that it was about to wake up from the ecstasy bell, Yan Xiangluo input his mental power into the ecstasy bell, and directly used his mental power to override the ecstasy bell, increasing the enchantment. With such intensity, gray-spotted wolf gradually got lost in the ecstasy bell. Yan Xiangluo seized the opportunity, and the flying petals directly attacked the gray-spotted wolf's eyes, neck, and belly, which were fatal places. Countless petals attacked, and gray-spotted wolf was controlled by the ecstasy bell again. The flower petals were submerged into gray-spotted wolf's body. Yanxiangluo shouted explode, and immediately, the petals flew in opposite directions from gray-spotted wolf's body. After being ejaculated, the severe pain made gray-spotted wolf wake up from the ecstasy bell, let out a roar, and his body collapsed limply. Yanxiangluo panted and looked at the gray-spotted wolf awkwardly. She did not rush over to him. She did not walk over until she could no longer sense any trace of demonic power. The huge gray-spotted wolf was lying on the ground like a small mountain bag. With a wave of her hand, Yanxiangluo put the gray-spotted wolf into the kinkan bag and went to keep company with the spotted snake. You actually killed an intermediate gray wolf, Lu Yuexi's disbelieving voice sounded. Yanxiangluo was speechless. She had tried her best to avoid them, so why did she meet them again? Turning her head to look over, she saw that although everyone in the group of 15 people was there, they were much more embarrassed than she was. Yanxiangluo didn't respond. She took out a pill to repair internal abdominal injuries and swallowed it. In an instant, the injured internal organs were wrapped in a warm current, and they were repaired immediately. This is why alchemists are unwilling to learn medical skills and just make elixirs in one way. The effect of elixirs is indeed fast and good. Bai Tangyunyu said, Uncle Master Yu, are you still training alone? Yes, it's good to be alone. It saves trouble. Yan Xiang finished her words, looked at everyone, waved her hands to Bai Tangyunyu and said, I have to go collect medicine, so I won't talk to you. After saying that, he turned around and shouted to the clouds in the grass, Yun Tuan, let's go. The clouds jumped out, fell into her hands, and then climbed onto her shoulders and lay down, leaving their backs like this. Lu Yuexi, who had been ignored, had hatred in her eyes. How could she still be alive and better off than them? How could it be possible? The powder of the beast-attracting pill she had given was enough to attract dozens of monsters. Mengfei looked at Yanxiangluo's back with complicated eyes. No wonder she was noticed by the master of Thousand Poison Peaks. She really had some abilities. She has seen it. In just 4 days, Yanxiangluo has advanced to another level. Now she is at the 7th level of the UN level. In 2 more levels, she will reach the spirit level. According to her promotion speed, this experience is over. After that, she is likely to be able to break through to the spiritual level. In the past 4 days, several of them have advanced, but that was after they had not advanced for a long time. Others also saw that Yan Xiang had fallen through the ranks, so they naturally discovered that she had advanced again. Zhang Qinghao said to Bai Tangyunyu, she has been promoted to level 3 in the past month, right? How can anyone advance so quickly? If so, why was her cultivation so low before? Could it be that the master of Thousand Poison Peak used pills to improve her cultivation? Bai Tangyunyu was also surprised. As far as I know, Master Jun was promoted to the 1st level on the first night of the assessment. Everyone was silent. In a month and a few days, she had already advanced to level 4? What kind of cultivation talent is this? Lu Yuexi said unconvinced, she must have used some means, otherwise her cultivation level was so low before. This is also what other people think. Only Bai Tangyunyu doesn't think so. I don't know what's going on. He just doesn't believe that Yanxiangluo will use elixirs to improve her cultivation. In that case, she won't have any big achievements in her cultivation. She must not have used tricks. Didn't you see that the gray-spotted wolf she killed was an intermediate level? If the cultivation level was improved by relying on pills, it would not have such strong leapfrog combat strength, Bai Tangyunyu said. Sighing secretly in her heart, Yanxiangluo didn't want to say another word to them. It was obvious that she didn't have a good impression of them, and maybe she just wanted to be polite to herself. They will regret it in the future, and the slap in the face will not be far away. Meng Fei's eyes flashed, so many of us are living in such embarrassment, how can she live so easily alone? Everyone was puzzled after hearing her words. For 4 days, they lived like years, and among the 15 people, there was not even a little girl who was calm and comfortable. Although she was also in a sorry state, her momentum was much better than theirs. Let's follow up and take a look, Zhang Qinghao said. Bai Tangyunyu didn't want to go with him, but he also knew that they wouldn't listen to him. Now he was really considering changing his teammates next time. Master, they are following Yun Tuan, reminded Yan Xiangluo. Yan Xiangluo raised her eyebrows, found a big tree, and led the clouds into the space. If you are able, follow along. After a while, 15 people appeared, and Meng Fei asked doubtfully, where is the person? She obviously walked this way. I can't feel her breath at all, Zhang Qinghao said a little irritably. What should we do now? Lu Yuexi hated Yuan Xiangluo so much. How could she, a UN level cultivator, get rid of people like them who were at the spiritual level? End of this chapter.